Everyone? This is Drew Code Sports Talk, and I am your host, Andrew Wright. And yes, if you're watching on YouTube, which I don't think this is going on YouTube Live, but anyway, if you are watching on YouTube for maybe the videos or TikTok, yes, we are doing this episode together finally. So Cody Johnson in his living room. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Good. I'm so glad we're able to get together again. It's been a minute, and I say minute as every stretch of the word. So I'm glad we get to do this, man. I know that we've been texting and Marco Poloing for several weeks about sports and life and stuff. So I'm super happy that we get to record. It feels like the good old days, man. So
yes.
But before we get started, though, everybody, I'm going to get to this before I forget again. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can also go check us out on drewcodesportstalk.com. So without further ado, Drew, man, what is going on? How's it going in the life of the Wright house?
And I don't need to get into all the details, but there's just been a lot that's been going on. Planning for birthdays, as I told you about before we started recording, which we're not going to get into. But my brother-in-law, which first of all, Diego, I don't know if you're listening. I don't know if you're able to listen, but I wanted to say happy birthday. Today is his birthday. Unfortunately, he is not here. He is traveling to Argentina for something that he is doing through school, where he is studying abroad for the summer, which is really cool. And that was a big debacle that I ended up having to take him to the airport, which ended up working out. So it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just difficult getting there, but he finally got there. So really proud of him. I'm glad he's able to do this. This will be really cool. And I can't wait for him to tell us about all these stories that he's going to have, because you can't go to another country and not just have like 5 stories right off the bat. So anyway, happy birthday, Diego, and I hope you have a wonderful time. And hopefully you get to listen to this over there. If not, maybe you'll listen to it later. But appreciate him, and happy birthday. He turns 19. And unfortunately, he's 19 over in a different country by himself. So I hope he's not too sad, but I'm sure he's too busy trying to figure out everything. So I'm sure he's having a good old time.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. And happy birthday, Diego. And hopefully he hears this, and hopefully he'll send you a message that he got it. But, hopefully all's well. I mean, I think you were telling me that he needs to get a special SIM card for his phone or whatnot. So hopefully he gets that situated.
I mean, that's what he told me. I don't know. Maybe he just was saying that. So when I'm like, hey, can I text you? He just won't have to respond. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But he did respond to me this morning. I asked if he landed. He said, yeah. So, and I wasn't trying to keep the conversation going like crazy. I just said, hey, have a good time. Because I knew I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure he said that he had a class like right after he got off the plane, like maybe 2 hours after he's supposed to get off the plane. So I'm sure he was trying to rush, get to his host family, introduce himself, meet everyone, figure out how he's going to get to school, have his class. I don't know how many classes he has on this day, but I know he's probably super busy. So I'm not trying to be all crazy brother-in-law and be like, hey man, what are you doing? How's it going? What's new over there? And blah, blah, blah. So I'm sure he'll just tell me in due time. So.
Yeah, or he's already told that to his parents, and you can just get the information from them. So,
yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll see. But I'm just trying to keep my distance, let him have his fun, not trying to bombard him, because, like you said, I'm sure he's getting text messages from his girlfriend, his parents. So, I don't need to add to that.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that, Drew. So there was a game tonight with the Lakers and the Nuggets. Give me your thoughts on it, man. What's your breakdown of game 2, and what's your thoughts of what happened?
Yeah, so we just literally, as we're recording this is Thursday, an hour after the game had ended. So this is our thoughts exactly after the game, as I try and burp. I did write notes. I have one page of the first half, second page of the second half. So I'll just run through them. If there's any talking points that you wanna like talk about, stop me and let me know what your thoughts are. But I'll just kind of run through. These are kind of plays that I thought were either really big moments, possibly game-changing moments in the fact of like the momentum being shifted or whatever. So I just wrote down like key plays that I thought were on here. So the first one I wrote was D'Angelo Russell, the flagrant foul that was called on him on Jamal Murray. Not a flagrant in my opinion. He went to go for a block. It was a basketball play. He did hit his head. There's no argument about that, but he wasn't trying to hit his head. So I kind of felt like it shouldn't be a flagrant. And so they were going by the book, which is ironic because then Rui Hachimura had a layup that he went up for, and he got smacked in the head, and it was a basketball play too. I don't think it was on purpose like they were trying to hit his head, but I felt like it was more clear than the Jamal Murray one, and they didn't call that a flagrant foul. So I just kind of thought that if they're going to call the D'Angelo Russell a flagrant foul, the Rui Hachimura should have been one. And I do think that was kind of a momentum shift towards the Nuggets at that point, because I think the Lakers were starting to kind of get into a groove. And when that all stopped and they were like talking about all that, I kind of felt like they lost a little bit of that momentum that they were kind of getting. So the Anthony Davis being called for basket interference, it was a big play. I'm not talking about the goaltending. It was the one where I don't know who was shooting it, but it bounced out and he grabbed the ball and dunked it in. And they called it basket interference because they said the ball was over the hoop. But you could see on the replay, they had like a really close-up replay, that ball was coming out. Now I know in it's a bang-bang play, live. You can't really slow it down. You kind of have to call it how you see it. But I thought they should have even if it were kind of close, I felt like they should have just let it go. I didn't think that they should have called it if it is that close. And on the replay, it showed that it was coming out. So I thought that would have been a big momentum swing for the Lakers that would have got them back in their groove. And unfortunately, they didn't call it that way. Now, this is just more first half. I think this was more second quarter, actually. Rui Hachimura started 5 for 5 from the court, and that was huge. Now, he ended up he actually was 8 for 8 later on, like in the second half, but I'm just marking what the first half. He was on fire. He was the leading scorer coming out of going into the third quarter, going into halftime with 17 points. He led all scorers with 17 points. So Rui was a big factor. He was obviously the number 3 guy for the Lakers. I felt like he was feeling it, and you could see that there were some passes in the third quarter and later in the fourth quarter where he kind of had some shots where, they kind of were like, yeah, go ahead and play a little ISO ball here. You're the hot hand. Why don't you take your shot that you want to take? So I think the Lakers did a good job of recognizing that he was kind of the hot hand. So going into the second half, Rui stayed hot. Through 3 quarters, he was 8 for 9. Like I said, he went 8 for 8, and then he had a 3 towards the end of the third quarter, and he ended up missing it. But he was a huge factor why the Lakers were doing what they were doing. So I felt like the Lakers had really good ball movement in the third quarter, but they weren't translating into points. Like it was just they kept getting a really good looks and just not hitting the shots. And obviously later on that did affect the score. Lakers had bad transition defense all game long, not just the second half, but I felt specifically at the start of the fourth quarter they had really bad transition defense, and it just that put the Nuggets on a run. And then every time the Nuggets did have a run starting, LeBron actually came in and stopped it. So there was one in the first half where they were like on I think it was like a 12-2 run, I believe, in the second quarter. And LeBron just got it on top of the key, made a quick move, went inside and made a layup, and then like killed the momentum that the Nuggets had. And then the second half, he went up for a layup again and was actually fouled, and he made both free throws. So, he was kind of the run killer. He was the one who, when the Lakers needed to stop the bleeding, LeBron was the guy, which mostly he is. But I just wanted to note that a little bit because I did feel like this was going to be a LeBron James game, and it kind of ended up being obviously Rui played really well as well, scoring his points. But LeBron was really was the man in this game. Schroeder was playing great defense against Murray up until the fourth quarter, where Murray was just making everything. And there was a point where they were talking about where Schroeder went underneath on a screen instead of getting up on him. And you were kind of talking about how AD didn't really step up or didn't respect him. And I felt like Schroeder, being the main guard, he should have been the one who was like really up on Murray the whole time. And I felt like going underneath the screen was the wrong move. And it ended up, he hit it like 2 threes doing that happening. So, Murray, he was making a lot of shots, but Schroeder, I think, could have done a little bit better. But he was playing great D for him for 3 quarters. I mean, Murray wasn't really making a lot, and then finally he got hot in the fourth quarter, which is what I said. Murray was getting hot at the right time in the fourth quarter. Anthony Davis, his shots were not falling to him. I mean, he ended up with 18 points, but he was 4 for 15 from the field. He just was not hitting his shots. And then sloppy play at the end ended the Lakers. They were getting some momentum going in. They were kind of starting to catch up. I think they went down by like 3 at one point. And then the Nuggets, they just were playing sloppy, just losing the ball, throwing it away, not really aggressively going after the boards and whatnot. So I felt like there was a lot to be desired for the Lakers. I do feel like the Lakers are going to definitely get Game 3. I just think some of the shots that the Nuggets were hitting in Game 1, it's not going to happen again. Murray was just on fire in the fourth quarter. I don't think any defense really was going to stop that. There was a couple of times where I saw a hand right in his face and he's still draining it. So, unfortunately those suck and it came late. But really, what are you going to do about it? I mean, you did everything that you possibly could. So, but the plus and minuses are really bad. I did want to mention that as well. Anthony Davis was a -10. Vanderbilt was a -10, and he ended up getting pulled pretty early because Rui was playing well, and then Dennis Schroeder was playing well. D'Angelo Russell was a -16. He wasn't hitting his shots, and he's not a known defender to begin with. LeBron James is a +4. That's not surprising. He did lose the ball a few times. I don't think he played bad. Austin Reeves was a +13. He's the highest. He's the highest one. Hachimura -5. Schroeder +5. Walker -6. I felt like we should have given some of those minutes that Walker got, should have gone to Beasley. He came from the Nuggets, so he kind of knows who they are. So I felt like that might have been a better setup. But a lot more pluses in the Nuggets, and I think that's the difference. Aaron Gordon was a +4, even though I think that's generous. Michael Porter Jr. was a +1. Jokic was a +7. Murray +8. KCP was a -9. Green -1. Bruce Brown was the highest rated. He was +16. He was hitting a lot of big shots. Yeah. And I don't think that's going to happen in Game 3. Jackson was a +1, but he was only on the court for 3 minutes. Brown, the other Brown, the white one, he was a -2, but he was on the court for only 5 minutes. I don't think that guy's going to see any more time. Every time he's on the court, he's not doing anything. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see him again. But just some things that I kind of wanted to point out. Again, a lot of big shots that were hit that I don't see the Nuggets continuing to hit. I do think that if the Lakers can win both games in LA, we have a series. So, but I do think if they fall down 3-1, I don't think they make it out of Denver alive.
Yeah. A couple of things that worried me about the Lakers is, you have LeBron 0-6 from the three. You have D'Angelo Russell, who's, by accounts, a little bit more improved of a 3-point shooter, only went 1 of 5. I think one of the things I'm concerned with is players that, we traded for. D'Angelo Russell, who is very good in pushing the speed of the game, but he's not a very reliable defender. And I agree, the flagrant foul was not. I know it's a flagrant foul by the letter of the law, but realistically, like, it was a basketball move. He went for the ball. He had no malicious intent to hit Jamal Murray on the head.
Yeah, my argument is if you're going to call it, you got to call it both ways.
Yeah.
And there was another case where Rui should have had a flagrant foul,
right,
against him, not on him, and they didn't. So if you're going to call that, that's fine. Then you have to call it the other way. And if you don't, then it looks like, you're just giving it to the home crowd, which I know everyone's going to scream at me. Well, the Lakers had more free throws. I'm not saying that the Lakers were cheated. I'm just saying at that point, it felt like a big play, and I would have just liked it called the other way. I don't think it would have changed the game all that much, but it could have. You never know.
Yeah. I'd like to also say, too, I thought in the third and the fourth quarter, I know that the Lakers shot more free throws than the Nuggets. I did feel like that the refs let a lot of fouls go that the Lakers could have gotten calls for, like, especially when it went to AD. I think it was like the last 3 minutes of the third quarter. There was like 2 inside plays that were off to AD, and he had got hit right on the hands, right on the arms, whistle not blown. Fourth quarter, same thing with LeBron. He'd penetrate into the lane, didn't get any calls. And I know, again, yes, the Lakers did have far more free throws than the Nuggets, but I mean, those were fouls. Those were legit fouls. They were, there were fouls that usually get called all the time. And so what if the Lakers were more aggressive getting inside? Those calls could have changed a lot. I will say, though, I think what I was a little disappointed with LeBron is, he was great on the defensive end in terms of like getting steals, creating opportunities to get extra possessions. But, he did completely botch a layup after he stolen the pass late off of the inbound.
Yeah.
And he just, no one really, I mean, a light contest, but nothing that hasn't done before. And he just smoked the layup. Same thing on the dunk in the first half. He just, ball slipped out of his hands. I mean, I'm not saying that, it's going to always happen, but, that's, that's 2 possessions right there where we had an opportunity to score. We didn't. We lost by 2 possessions. And, every point kind of counts around this time. I think what I'm concerned with the Lakers and this Nuggets series is the Nuggets are a volume shooting team, but they also go through long stretches of the game where they can kind of go cold and they make bad plays. And the Lakers, I felt like, should have done a little bit better at making them pay for it.
Yeah.
I also feel like our Lakers defense isn't respecting the Nuggets like they did with the Warriors game, if that makes any sense. Like in the Warriors series, when the Lakers were playing the Warriors, they had a lot of tough defenses. When the ball was swinging around on the Warriors offensive side, the Lakers all would make the proper switches and they would collapse to the ball. And I just don't feel like I see the same urgency in this Nuggets series that the Lakers are doing. And you touched on it a little bit earlier too with Jamal Murray. He got hot in the fourth quarter. He scored 23 out of his 37 in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, and then just for additional numbers, the Lakers only scored 24 points in the fourth. So they scored 1 more point than Jamal Murray did that entire fourth quarter. And there was some plays where Murray was ISO. And I'm talking about the pick and roll where Schroeder switched off, and then it was Jamal Murray and Anthony Davis that was basically at the top of the 3-point line, and that was basically the first 3 that he hit that kind of got his scoring momentum going.
Yeah.
And I had texted you immediately after that. I felt like AD could have gone up a little bit more, and the only reason why is because I can remember game, I think 3 or 4 of the Warriors game where there'd be a switch that AD would have to go to Stephen Curry. And Stephen Curry is taking up all the space and having him stay out there. And because he's so long, Curry couldn't really go anywhere. And I'm not saying that Jamal Murray isn't as good as Stephen Curry, but I do think that, there is a little bit of a drop off in terms of the player. And I don't think that Jamal Murray is as quick, nor does he have the ball handling skills, I think, as Stephen Curry, but he can shoot as well as him.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like if AD would have closed the space a little bit, he could have had a better chance at contesting it, because there were some instances in the first half where AD kind of did a little bit better on a closeout and Murray overshot or he left it short or whatnot. And that was a lot of disruption. And I know in the fourth quarter, everyone was tired because everyone had played a lot of heavy minutes, but I remember seeing the Lakers playing a little bit more of urgency on the defensive side with the Warriors. And now in the first 2 games of the Nuggets series, I just don't see the same urgency. Like they will have that urgency in stretches, but when it comes down to like, okay, we need to get a stop, they're very poor, like what you mentioned in transition. When the game is sped up, they can't really keep up with it. When, if there's a way, for some reason, if the Nuggets decide to get into a half court set, the Lakers are really good at making that adjustment to have a really solid half court defense. But even still, though, like I know that their defense is a lot better when it comes to closeouts. And I really feel like the Nuggets just have that team where you can't give them hardly any space. For some reason, in game 1, the Lakers did a lot of going under the screens on a pick and roll. This one, they were a little bit better, but again, they didn't respect the shooters as much as I thought they should have. But we did have role players like Austin Reeves, Hachimura. They were great. I mean, they were, 2 of the leading scorers. I think if AD had a little bit better of a 4 and 15 kind of a game, a little bit of a different swing. I think LeBron did as best as he could. I mean, he had nearly a triple-double, and I mean, granted, a couple of additional points we could have used from that, but I felt like the Lakers did a better job at rebounding. I know that Joker got still 17, but it's a lot less than 22 that he got in the first game. So I felt like the Lakers did a little bit better at trying to make sure he didn't crash the boards. But, again, Joker is just this phenomenal player. He had another triple-double today. And I know that you and I talked about this, and I don't know if you're going to talk about it a little bit later, but I mean, Joker is playing on a record-setting level in terms of constant triple doubles, the amount of usage he is, just an unprecedented big man that is not only bringing up the ball like a guard, but is getting everyone involved, scoring at will, just unprecedented. And I know that there's a lot of controversy between, him getting back-to-back MVPs, but honestly, it seems like he probably should have gotten an MVP the 3rd time compared to another player that just got bounced last week, which, again, I think one of the things that the Lakers need to do, though, is they really got to play with a sense of urgency, and they really have to play some hard defense. Like, they're going to have to grind this game out to where it's not 100-point scoring every game. It's got to be mid to low 90s, because they're going to have to just grind out on defense. I think that's the only way to stop the Nuggets, because I don't know if the Lakers have the volume shooting that the Nuggets do to keep up with the 3-point shooting, because the Lakers went 8 of 30 from 3 and the Nuggets went 14 of 38. So they not only shot 8 more threes, but they hit 6 more than the Lakers. And that's a high volume. I mean, that's right there, 18-point swing. And the Lakers couldn't seem to buy a 3-point basket late. I mean, Austin Reeves, fortunately, was hitting some clutch shots, so he helped keep us in there. But, I mean, the rest of the team is not a predominant 3-point team. And really the only time we hit our 3 points is when we're moving the ball around, because we now have the lead and the other team is now trying to play perfect basketball. Yeah. And we're really good about picking our spots. But when we're playing down and we rush our shots, we're not as consistent as we can be. So it's going to be a tough series, man. I'm hoping it goes 7, because honestly, it's a really entertaining series. Like, if you're a true basketball fan, this is some fun stuff. But if I'm the Lakers, man, I got to take the Nuggets a little bit more seriously. And I felt like game 1, they didn't really respect the Nuggets. Game 2, the adjustments were there, but the Nuggets just came back because, I mean, they're at home. They had the momentum. Yeah. So we'll see what happens in LA. But the Lakers are in a must win, because there's no way they can go down 3-1 in the series. Or 3-0. There'd be no way that the Lakers would come back from that, especially against the Nuggets.
Yeah, I will say this, because I know I was pushing back on when you texted to me, but I know what play you're talking about with the Jamal Murray, where it was just him and Anthony Davis, and Jamal Murray got a little bit of space and went for a 3. And first of all, it was a good play by Murray because he was at the top of the key. He wasn't beyond the 3. and he kind of did a little bit of a step back three. But look, Anthony Davis knew he had no help inside, and if you look at it, he really didn't have inside help, and he kind of had to cheat over for Jokic, which Jokic was right there. So he did kind of have to give Murray a little bit of space to kind of cover, because I don't remember exactly who was on Jokic, but it wasn't like LeBron, who LeBron was playing.
I think Schroeder had to make the rotation, and I think he was technically guarding him, but I understand what you're saying. I just think that normally Anthony Davis normally would have played up on that, and I agree with the no help defense. You got to play a little bit more back, so that way you got to respect the ball handling. He doesn't get past you.
Yeah, that's the difference between the Warriors and the Nuggets, though, is the Warriors didn't have an inside threat.
Yeah,
they don't have a Jokic who can. I mean, Draymond Green. Okay, well, we can say Draymond Green is about as good of a passer as Jokic is, but he's not as good of a scorer. So you can kind of be like, we'll give him this layup. Whereas with the Nuggets, you're kind of like, no, we can't have Jokic get hot. And unfortunately, I think after that three went in, I think Murray was starting to get his confidence back. So I understand why that play was significant, but I also do understand how Anthony Davis at that point kind of had to give him a little bit of space. It was a good play by Murray. He had that step back, and I don't think Anthony Davis was going to close in time. And if he closed too much, you foul him, and then obviously he made it. So and that's a 4-point play. So I think he was just ended up saying, I'll just give him the three. And unfortunately, he went in. And, I mean, I'm sure there's other plays, but, I feel like Schroeder this next game coming up, he's going to have to go through the screens instead of underneath. Like, he's going to have to go on top and really put a body on these guys. I kind of wanted to see Vanderbilt against Murray. I would like to see Schroeder on, like, Bruce Brown, or actually I would probably put him on Michael Porter Jr., and I know Michael Porter Jr. is much taller than Schroeder, but if Schroeder just keeps a body on Michael Porter Jr., Michael Porter is going to settle for shots versus trying to go inside all the time. So I think you can get away with it. And then I think all the other matchups were fine. So that's kind of what I would do, maybe slow him down, exactly what they did with Steph Curry. Put Vanderbilt on him, put a body on him the whole time. I know Vanderbilt is kind of a liability offensively, but, take the good with the bad. I think start out like that, and then if you start needing buckets, then, start putting in your offensive guys. So that was what I would do.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with starting Vanderbilt. I'd actually like to see him, if he's not picking up Murray. I know how I would probably do it is I'd have Schroeder pick up Murray full court, because I really like when Schroeder did that with the Warriors, whoever they had handling the ball, like especially with Jordan Clark or Steph Curry. I really feel like Schroeder picking him up full court helps out a lot. Vanderbilt being able to stretch to maybe either defend Porter Jr. or Bruce Brown, either one of those two. But I think you're right. What makes it tough is, like, you need a lot of offensive input, and Vanderbilt's just not that guy. Like, he can probably sit in the corner three and maybe hit a couple of them, but he's not going to get you like 15 solid points and be a threat on the perimeter. Like, that's where,
you're
Austin
lucky if
Reeves
he gets 10 points.
Yeah, and that's where Austin Reeves comes in. And Austin Reeves is a good player, but he's just not nearly as lengthy of a defender as Vanderbilt, And I do think that, like, if the Lakers were to utilize, like, maybe Troy Brown Jr. for a little bit of stretch of time, maybe even Malik Beasley, like what you mentioned, they're a little taller, a little lengthier, so maybe that would help. But I think what makes it tough is, like, Beasley, since he came over to the Lakers, for some reason his confidence in shooting hasn't been there, and I can see why Darvin Ham has a hard time putting him in the rotation, because even when he played garbage time, I think this is game 6 against the Warriors, Malik Beasley, just for some reason, just when he shot, like, he only made a couple of easy buckets, and it wasn't consistent even in garbage time. It's like his confidence in shooting isn't there. And honestly, when we traded for him, I was hoping he would be a pretty good piece to, like, be some offensive relief, and it turned out that it was more Austin Reeves and Rory Hachimura. And I would like to get Beasley into the rotation, but I feel like we would need to waste a lot of offensive possessions to get him going. And I don't know if Darvin Ham wants to sacrifice that, because right now, this deep into the playoffs with everybody, even D'Angelo Russell has a pretty solidified place in the rotation, especially if he's having a pretty good game and he's able to hit some shots, get into the paint. And even today, he only had 10 points and he shot, barely anything, but he's still a part of the team. I don't think Darvin Ham wants to waste the minutes on Beasley when, you have Lonnie Walker, who can very easily get the buckets he needs and be an athletic defender. And we got to wait till Beasley gets his confidence to shoot. I just don't think Darvin Ham wants to waste that, unfortunately. Even though I think Beasley could have been really good for the Lakers if he would have panned out as soon as he got into the gym,
Yeah, and if they throw out Walker again and he kind of has a game like he did today, which was not great, I think then you actually might see Beasley and they might say, hey, now's your time for you to step up, and hey, maybe he does, and he starts seeing a little more time. I think that is a possibility, but I think you're right. You can't really play with it too much because you have a game to win, and if he's just throwing up shots and just completely bricking every single one of them, it's not really going to do you any good. So,
yeah.
All right, Cody. Well, let's talk about the other playoff game. Probably not as in depth, but let's talk about the Heat and Celtics series. So Heat took game one. I mean, the score doesn't really do it justice. I mean, the Heat basically had it pretty dominantly for most of the game. The third quarter was the big quarter for the Heat. They ended up scoring 46 points to the 25 that the Celtics scored. So they took a pretty big lead. They got some good production out of Kevin Love. Himmy Butler, baby. Yes, he is him. 35 points from Butler. Adebayo had a 20-point game, which you're not going to get every single time, but hey, they'll take it. 15 points from Vincent. 15 points from Strus, 15 points from Martin, 15 points from Lowry. That's Martin and Lowry were both guys coming off the bench, so that's great. I mean, that's 30 points just right there from the bench from two guys, so that's huge. Whereas the Celtics kind of struggled. They had 30 from Tatum, which was more garbage. Well, I had a bet on Tatum, and it was a 29.5, and I had him under, and he hit a junk two-pointer in the fourth quarter with 11 seconds left to get 30. I was so pissed. But anyway, Al Horford had 7 points. Robert Williams getting 14 points. I mean, that's okay, but I don't think you want Williams getting that many points. I think it was more garbage time at that point. Marcus Smart, 13, and they rely on him taking some open threes. He was 50% from three, but he was 3 from 7 from the field overall. 22 points from Jaylen Brown, 19 from Brogdon, 11 from White, and then 0 from Pritchard, who saw about 12 minutes. So it wasn't great for the Celtics. I mean, there's some decent numbers. I mean, I think the Heat were kind of on fire, so that kind of helps. But I don't know, man. I don't know how the Celtics can guard this Heat team because I was kind of worried that the Heat weren't going to be able to guard the Celtics, but you kind of look at Jimmy Butler and it's like, who are you going to put on him? You're going to put Brown on him? Okay. But then he's not going to really be feeling it offensively. So would you rather have his offensive production or his defense production? So I do feel like you're going to see in game 2, Marcus Smart is going to play a lot on Jimmy Butler, and I think that's the right move because you don't really need Marcus Smart to be scoring as many points as they think they need him to do. He's just kind of got the confidence to shoot whenever he needs to, which I don't know where he got that confidence from, but he has it. So I think if you put Smart on him, you kind of get rid of some of mispossessions. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting series because I don't think, one team has the edge on the other. I just think right now the Heat are the hotter team. I think the Celtics play very inconsistently, whereas the Heat always come out and play hard.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure the Celtics are going to steal 1, maybe even 2 games, but I don't know if they can win this series just judging. I mean, from game 1, it is only game 1. I think game 2 is really going to show you, okay, this is how the series is going to go. And just like the Lakers and Nuggets, I mean, we're saying we're coming off from this game on down 0-2, and we're like, they're definitely going to get game 3. Like the Lakers are going to get game 3 because the Nuggets are not going to keep hitting these shots.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas right now, I don't think Heat had these crazy shots. I think Jimmy Butler is playing out of his mind. Jimmy Butler is not usually a guy who's dropping 30 all the time, but he is a guy who is a dangerous player. He got to the line 10 times,
Mm-hmm.
made 9 of them. So he was just, that says he wasn't even settling for threes. He was only 2 for 4 on threes. He was going inside and just taking it to the Celtics, and no one's there to stop him right now. So Horford and Williams are going to have a better game, and I think Marcus Smart on Jimmy Butler, even though I don't think Smart is what he was last year, I do think he's still a really good defender. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, I think what's crazy is I think the Miami Heat, like what you said, they're probably the hottest team coming into this series right now. And honestly, I think the scary thing is it's not outrageous to say the Miami Heat's probably the favorite out of the Celtics. And my only point to that would be it's because even with the Celtics, it feels like that they are a team that continues to underachieve and they get in their own way. They're not as intense on defense as they were last year. I think I know that Tatum had 30 points, but he only had 1 field goal in the fourth quarter in crunch time. And I really feel like that's a big issue is like there's a lot of question marks of Tatum's like aggression and his, ability to go get a basket when he needs to in crunch time, and he had the same problem in the finals last season. And I feel like, there's some real question marks if Tatum is the guy that's going to close out the game. Like he'll get you buckets all day, but come like the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter, he's nowhere to be found. And I think Jaylen Brown is the more aggressive scorer, and he's the one that's more consistent throughout the game, but he just doesn't get the volume. He's not shooting the same volume as like what Tatum would, because Tatum still went to the line 11 times, but it was the quietest 30-point game that I've ever seen from, like a perennial MVP. I think another thing too that Miami has the advantage on is with Bam Adebayo, like which one of the Celtics bigs is going to guard him, because he's very good with his handles. He can distribute. He's tough on the rebounds. And because he has a really, he can take a pretty long shot, not necessarily threes, but he can get you out away from the paint and he can facilitate, and he's athletic, which makes that really tough. And you got all these scrappy guys like Vincent, Strauss, Kevin Love, Martin. You have all these guys that are willing to do all the dirty work. And this is what I was talking about with the Celtics. They just don't feel like they're the aggressive team that they were last year, because they were more known for their defense last season than their offense. Our offense just kind of came around because Brown and Tatum, they can shoot, and they would, put up shots and they'd go in majority of the time. But more or less like around like Williams, Smart, and Horford, excuse me, they were more of a defensive stopping team. And now it's like they're more or less like they fight for their lives to try to not give up buckets, and they aren't doing a great job at stopping that. I don't know if Marcus Smart getting on Jimmy Butler is going to do anything but stop him from scoring. But Jimmy Butler also had 6 steals. So the Celtics need to find a way to stop turning the ball over and giving it up to them. And they've got to start rebounding the ball, because this is the rebound numbers are very low for both teams. 35 for the Heat, 25 for the Celtics. So what are the Celtics going to do to create extra opportunities and get the ball back? Because the Heat right now, it's again not a large number, but that's extra possessions. That's, when you're missing and you get that ball and you transition, that's on the Heat. That's where they excel, because the Celtics aren't going to be able to stop that transition. So I think the Celtics, they need to, I don't know if Jason Tatum needs to up his aggression when it comes to scoring, but in the playoffs, especially when it comes down to the time that he needs to show up, I really would like to see him step up and say, give me the ball. I'm going to get a bucket, and we're going to move, and we're going to do this, because right now, like, I just don't see it out of him, and by all accounts, the Celtics should have had a better game, but turnovers, the assists, the, not being aggressive getting to the free throw line, or they were aggressive on the free throw line, but the 3-point shot wasn't there. Their defense wasn't there. So I think the Miami Heat, they play with such aggression that they grind out games. And ironically, they outshot the Celtics. So I think if the Celtics want to survive the series, they're going to have to get into the trenches and they're going to have to use their big man to get and beat up in the middle, because honestly, the Miami Heat aren't very tall. So if the Heat continue to spread out the Celtics, then it's the Heat's game. But if the Celtics can find a way to penetrate the middle and allow the offense to kind of flow around that, then the Celtics have a good chance of letting their offense again just kind of shoot from the perimeter and have that volume, stuff like that. But right now, the Celtics are playing into the Heat's game. So we'll see, man. Like game 2 tomorrow night's going to be very interesting. I'm curious to see what the Celtics do to adjust. And, maybe Marcus Smart on Jimmy Butler works out, but Jimmy Butler is also such a crafty veteran that he can very easily get Smart in foul trouble early. And now what are you going to do? Because now you have your best defender that's going to be probably sitting on the bench majority of the game if he gets into early foul trouble. So
I think you were looking at the wrong one, because the total rebounds that the Celtics had, they ended up having 34 rebounds. They had 25 defensive rebounds.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
So it actually was pretty close, but defensive rebounds, I was kind of like, okay, well, that means the Heat were getting more rebounds, which means the Celtics were missing more shots. And I was looking at the field goal percentage. It's 54% for the Heat. It's 51% for the Celtics, so not too big of a difference. This is the big one, 51.6%, so we'll call it 52% from the three for the Heat. The Celtics were at a dismal 34.5, so we'll call it 35%. Mm-hmm. So that's the big change. I don't think the Heat are going to shoot like that, but if the Celtics continue to shoot 35%, which is, I think, is about average usually, they're not going to win this game regardless. And to your credit, 6 steals. No one should have 6 steals in a playoff game. That shouldn't happen. And you're right. I was listening to Colin Cowherd, my guy, and he was talking about Jason Tatum. Hey, LeBron was a guy who wanted to pass. Well, if we're going to use that stat, then Jason Tatum had 1 assist in that game, which means he's not confident at all. He feels comfortable shooting the ball, whenever he's ready to shoot the ball, but he needs to have that killer instinct. And I know everyone wants to point, hey, look at Game 7 against the Sixers. He had 51 points. You're right. He had an amazing game. But if that ball wasn't going into the hoop as often as it was, he would have lost confidence and would have stopped shooting like he did in this game. To your credit, he shot 1 time in the fourth quarter, and it was garbage time to get 2 points. That shouldn't happen. You should be trying to make your way back. LeBron James was 0 for 6 from 3. Still taking him because he's trying to get his guys back in the game. He's trying to cut a lead. He's trying to get that momentum back on his side. Jason Tatum is not doing that. And we can talk about, well, Jason, yes, he, to your credit, he can score as much as he wants. But when push comes to shove, he just seems to fold. We saw it last year, and that was the big knock on him. And then all of a sudden, he has this 51-point game, and everyone's losing their mind, like, oh my God, the debate's over, Tatum. No, you look at this game, and you're like, you're right. I was shocked that he was even at 30 points. And I know we're crushing a guy who had 30 points, but he was 11 for 11 of free throws. I mean, that's 11 points right there. Let's say he's not as aggressive early on, and he gets maybe 6, 7 free throws, which I think is around usually where he's averaging at. That's not going to do it, and they would have lost even worse. So Tatum has to be more aggressive, continue that. And I love what you said. You had brought this up. I don't know if you said it right now or if you've said it in polos in the past, but Jaylen Brown has not figured out, okay, Jason Tatum is not feeling it today. I need to take over. And that's what Jason Tatum needs, because when LeBron's not feeling it, he gives it to AD. If both of them are not feeling it, they now rely on Austin Reeves or D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, whoever's the hot hand in that one. So they need a guy like that, and the Celtics just don't. And I'm really in agreement with this with a lot of these Celtics fans that I hear. They are driven nuts about Missoula not taking their timeouts. Like he
Mhm.
just lets them play, and you can do that to a certain extent, but sometimes you just need to take a timeout to stop some bleeding, to
Yeah.
give your guys a rest, or to write up a play. Like, listen, we understand that they know how to play the game. But you can at least just be like, hey, man, I just want to give you guys a breather, and I want you to know. Like, it could just be an inspirational speech.
Mhm.
That's okay. You can just be like, hey, you guys can win this game. Don't worry about it. Let's take a breath and let's go back out there and let's play our game. That's
Mhm.
okay if you do that. You don't have to have a play every time you come out. I think that's an overrated thing. I think you just need to encourage your guys. If you don't feel like, hey, I need to give them this play, then at least do something to get their spirits back up, because you leaving them out there for too long kills their any kind of hope that they have. And
Mhm.
then you call a timeout, they've already lost because now they don't believe they can do it. So the timeouts, I do think, need to be timely, and Missoula has not figured it out at all.
Yeah. Well, that's the unfortunate part of being a first-year head coach for him. And
Yeah.
again, this team is extremely talented. It's just, it feels like that they've taken a bit back, and feels like that they've hit their ceiling, which is weird because I feel like last year's team was a lot better than this year. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, game 2 tomorrow night, Friday night, as we're recording this on Thursday. So we'll see.
We will see.
All right, Drew, can I lead you into the baseball one?
Absolutely not.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, never mind then. Okay, so as everyone knows, Drew, I have Drew do his weekly top 5 MLB power rankings because, one, I like to know where his rankings are at, because sometimes they're against the norm for those that follow along, and I'm
Yes.
curious to see what they are now. So, Drew, without further ado, man, what is your top 5 MLB power rankings?
So so before I get into the way you said that, it kind of reminded me of the Family Guy, where it was like he kept bugging Lois. He's like, Lois, 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 and she's like, what? He's like, oh well, never mind.
Yeah.
So it just kind of reminded me of that. All right.
I do that to my wife sometimes, and then she really, ignores me.
Yeah. So it's not too much change. I pretty much have the same teams in. I think just different spots. So, and I was kind of looking at ESPN's power rankings as well. So maybe I was a little influenced by that, but I really didn't really disagree with a lot of their power rankings. There was like a couple where I was like, I'd probably have them a little bit lower, but whatever.
Mhm.
Like they had the Astros at like 6 or 7, and I was like, I don't think so. I think they're not playing that great right now, so I wouldn't put them up there. But
Mhm.
they're giving them the benefit of the doubt because they have all this history and guys injured and whatnot. So, but anyway, my power rankings. I'm gonna run through this pretty quick. I don't think I need to stop and say all the stuff that I normally do. So at 1, I have the Tampa Bay Rays. Pretty self-explanatory. They still have the best record in baseball. They still have the best run differential with a plus 121. So that's the best in baseball by far. Trying to look at whose second place is right now, and it's looking like it's the Braves at plus 80. I'm sorry, the Rangers at plus 87. So they're by far outscoring everyone, but they actually just lost a series to the Mets.
Mhm.
So they're starting to kind of come back to earth a little bit. But the big number that I still am very impressed with is the Tampa Bay Rays are 19-3 at home. They
Yeah.
are 13-10 away, so not a great away team, but their home record right now is ridiculous. So right now, if you're playing the Rays at home, it sucks for you because you're probably going to lose. So at number 2, I have the Los Angeles Dodgers. Listen, they've dealt with a lot of injuries. They just put another pitcher on the IL, and they still have. They're still the number 1 seed in the National League right now with 28-17 record. Actually, I think technically they would put the Braves at number 1, but I don't think that's going to last. I think the Dodgers just have a ridiculous team. Freddie Freeman has found his stride. Mookie Betts is still doing Mookie Betts things. Max Muncy finally has gotten out of his slow start. Kershaw has looked actually really good. He started off kind of rocky, and I thought he was going to have a rocky season, but he's He's done really well. He's starting to figure out, and it's dangerous that he's starting to figure this out, that he understands his fastball is not what it used to be, but he knows now how to use it, and he knows how to make it look faster than what it is. So he throws a lot more breaking pitches, which gets guys seeing a lot of the curveball. So they're like, okay, I'm waiting for that curveball, and then he just throws that fastball, and you're like, well, that looked like it was 98 miles an hour, and it was only like 91. So, Kershaw is starting to figure things out, and that's scary. I do worry about their starting rotation a little bit. Julio Urias has figured his stuff out as well. But I do think later on their starting rotation is going to start feeling it a little bit. But right now they're playing really good. They had JD Martinez out for a little bit. He just came back. Now they put Dustin May on the IL. Betts was gone for a few games. Freeman had a kind of a slowish start. Muncy had a god-awful start. James Outman has kind of slowed down a little bit, but he's hurt right now. So there's just a lot that's going on, and they're getting as much production from Jason Hayward as you can possibly get right out of, which is crazy. But, the Dodgers are playing well.
Well, before you move on to keep talking about the Dodgers, I'm pretty sure that the Oakland Athletics team is going to have a bargain sale at the trade deadline, and I'm sure the Dodgers are going to be the first one knocking at that door to get as many of those players as possible.
I don't know who they're going to get, because I look at that A's roster and it's like, I don't know who you want. I mean, I feel bad because I wish the A's were a little bit better, but they just don't have anyone I would really be licking my chops for. So,
well, the Dodgers just need a younger pitcher that's not going to, get injured. So who knows?
They trade everyone, so I don't think there's anyone they could get.
Dodgers shelf life is like 2.5 seasons. So
yeah, the A's shelf life is
6 months.
Is usually when your contract is about up. They're okay, we'll see you later.
All right.
So my number 3 team, I have the Atlanta Braves. They're a good team. They're actually not great at home, but they're really good away. So I think the home record will get better as we go on. They're a plus 62 run differential, which is actually better than the Dodgers, who's at plus 49. But this last 10 games, they're only 5-5. So they've kind of struggled a little bit, kind of hit a wall somewhat. And the Mets were kind of being a little bit of a disappointing team, but now they've kind of let them creep back in. So the Braves are going to have to put their foot down on the pedal a little bit more, and we'll see what they can do. But Braves are my number 3 right now. And then I have the Baltimore Orioles at 4. I think I had them at 5 last week or 2 weeks ago. This team just keeps winning. I mean, it's not fantastic. They're not just like dominating, but their young guys are playing really well. And Adley Rutschman is, ridiculous. He is going to be a star catcher for a long time. He's not a liability defensively, and he's got an amazing bat. And he's got as a baseball junkie, that guy has such a pure, pretty swing. It's just, it makes me so mad because I'm like, man, if I had a swing like that. But yeah, they're rolling through, and like they don't really have like these big name guys from like their pitchers, but their line, like Ryan Mountcastle has had a really good year, start to the year. Mullins is a defensive phenom out in center field. I know I'm missing a bunch of guys, but I can't think of everyone on their team right now. But Orioles are a really good team, and I'm very impressed. And then my number 5 team, I have the Texas Rangers. Now, I would probably have them a little higher. Again, the run differential, they're plus 87, so that's great. But I worry about DeGrom. Now, it sounds like he is going to be coming back, so that's good news for them because he was dealing. And they could really use him. Here's the thing. I'm not as afraid of their offense as they are playing. And the way they're playing really well, but I don't think I can see this offense lasting how it is. Now, it sounds funny saying that about a Bruce Bochy team because the Giants, we always heard that all the time, like, oh, this offense is not going to last. This offense is not going to last. Yet they don't do it. But one thing about Bruce Bochy's teams that he does so well is they don't strike out a ton. And the Rangers are kind of that same team. They're not really an easy team to strike out. And when you put the ball in play, a lot of good things can happen. Yes, a lot of bad things can happen as well, but you never know. Just that one little creep base hit that kind of gets by an infielder could create a lot of momentum. And so the Rangers kind of do the little things well. I don't think they're a dominant team yet. I think no one's afraid of them just yet, but I do think they have the makings to be a really scary team into this season. So I'm going to put the Rangers at 5.
All right, so give me a quick rundown 1 through 5 one more time.
So 1, I have the Tampa Bay Rays. 2, I have the Los Angeles Dodgers. 3, I have the Atlanta Braves. 4, I have the Baltimore Orioles. And 5, I have the Texas Rangers.
Right on. So quick question about the Giants, though. How do you think we're looking the last couple of weeks?
They've looked better. They're 5-5. They're on a 3-game winning streak. They just swept the Phillies, which I think was a really difficult matchup for them, and they ended up doing really well. Mm-hmm. Their pitching is starting to get to form a little bit. I'm a little worried about Manaea. I thought Manaea was going to be able to kind of get back to his form a little bit. I didn't think he was going to be Oakland A Sean Manaea, but I thought he was going to be, the last year Oakland A Sean Manaea, which wasn't like fantastic, but it was really good. It was decent. And Alex Cobb has done really well. Logan Webb, even though it seems like he just keeps losing games by just like two bad pitches, and then he like throws a gem the rest of the whole game. He's finally starting to get his wins tacked up. We had Ross Stripling today. I'm sorry, not today. Yesterday, we had Ross Stripling pitch, and then Sean Manaea actually showed up, and both of them did well. So it was kind of good to see the production. And the big thing that I'm really happy to see is Taylor Rogers, the big free agent signing that we had in the offseason, who's obviously Tyler Rogers' twin brother. He was the closer for the Padres. Then they traded him away to the Brewers, and he was really good there. We signed him, and he had a horrible start. He was like an 11-point-something ERA, and he threw away his glove, and his ERA has been 0 since. And he has been really good. He got the win. Actually, I think he got the win yesterday on Wednesday. So, it's good to see him kind of starting to get back in form. Camilo Doval closed out all 3 games, and he did really good. So, really encouraged by the pitching. And Mike Yastrzemski finally comes off the IL, so that's big. And he looks like he's continuing what he started with. Conforto is starting to kind of get into a groove. Estrada continues to do really well. This Casey Schmidt kid is dealing right now. I mean, it's great. And now we have Brandon Crawford back, which is even better because now we have a solid left side of the infield with Crawford at short and Schmidt at third. And David VR, he's actually hitting bombs in AAA, but Casey Schmidt is hitting so well and playing defense so well, it's kind of hard to call out VR. So it looks like VR is going to be hitting a few more AAA home runs because this Schmidt kid, and it's not even he's hitting a lot of home runs. He has, 2 home runs. He's just getting really good barrel on the ball and just getting in scoring position or driving in guys. And he had a throw from third base the other game that was clocked at 94.1, which is the fastest throw from any infielder in Major League Baseball history since they've been recording how fast these infielders are throwing. So that's really exciting too. You're like, oh God.
Yeah, well,
anything that's hit to him, he's throwing them out.
Yeah, well, he was a former pitch closer, I think, in college. So he's got a fast arm. Yep. And out of 36 bats, I'm looking right here, and he's already got 15 hits. So it's
not going to last. I know that
for sure.
He's going to hit a rookie wall.
Continue to do 417.
He's
but
going to hit a rookie wall, but if he can have a career like Brandon Crawford, and I think he will, because Brandon Crawford was never known for his bat, but when he came up, he was raking right away. And then he was kind of having these like little glove flips, and he had a really strong arm, and it just seemed like nothing got past Brandon Crawford. That's kind of how I've been seeing Casey Schmidt, and if he can have a career like Brandon Crawford, he's going to be a Giant for a long time.
Yeah, it just sounds like there's a little bit more excitement in the Giants, especially on Twitter since he got called up. Like the hitting has been a little bit better, and it's translating to better pitching.
Yeah.
And we're on a nice little groove right now. So
yeah, and I have been because I look at I can follow all these Giants guys on Twitters and stuff, and they're kind of will give you information about some of the minor league guys that have the prospects, and one of their top guys actually just got called up to AAA, Luis Matos. So we thought that he wasn't going to be seen probably until next year. There was a slight chance we would see him this year. And I think now that's still in play where we could possibly see him this year. He's a really exciting kid. He's got some really good pop. He's fast. So we'll see how he does in AAA, though. Kyle Harrison, if Manaea continues to have struggles, Ross Stripling has struggles, we actually might see Kyle Harrison this year, which he's our number one prospect right now. So that's really exciting. And the kid's been dealing in AAA. He leads AAA or the PCL league in strikeouts right now. So that's really encouraging. And then Marco Luciano, who finally came off of injury, he's been hitting for AA for a little while. So there could be a call up in his future pretty soon as well to AAA. So a lot of our prospects that we were kind of hoping would get going are now starting to go, and so it's really encouraging.
Nice. All right. Well, that's exciting to hear. All right, Drew. So let's do the last segment. This is Drew Takes. So, Drew, I've got 4 just quick little sports takes that I'm going to ask your opinion on. Just give it to me, quick and easy. And we're going to try to close out the show with this. So,
give it to me, baby.
Okay. First one is, okay. So for those that do or do not know, Ja Morant has had another incident where on Instagram Live, it was seen that he had shown a firearm in the video again. Now, for those that don't remember, back in March, the same thing had happened on an Instagram Live with him, I think, at a club. It accrued a 8-game suspension from Adam Silver, and he had a lot of backlash for it. He had a one-on-one interview with Jalen Rose about the incident and whatnot, and lo and behold, 2 months later, very similar incident happens where, he's on Instagram Live with somebody and it visibly shows that he, showed a firearm again. And, it's just unfortunate. So, Drew, what are your thoughts on this latest incident with Ja Morant?
Listen, I don't think the kid needs to be going to like rehab. I think it's a little overdoing it, like being outraged too much, in my opinion. But I also think it's like, okay, you already got this like big issue that everyone made of you having a gun. Like, why are you even near it right now? Why are you even near something like that? You're on live too, or if anyone is recording, like, don't have a gun. So I just think he's making some poor decisions, and to be honest, it kind of makes me think, and I know this is such a little thing, and I think people might give me a lot of backlash for this, but it kind of makes me think, okay, well, judging by the way you looked in the last game against the Lakers, like, now it's starting to make me think, I mean, are you in love with basketball, or are you just are you more in love with what basketball is giving you? Because if you're more in love with what basketball is giving you, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But don't get all mad when no one's taking you seriously, because you haven't proven that. And so I'm really curious. It's kind of hard for me to say I don't think they should have like suspended him from basketball things, because he kind of had it already an issue and they told him not to, and he still did. So I get that part. Like, you can't really back out of that. But at the same time, I would have been okay if they were just like, listen, he obviously needs to realize that this is a bigger deal than what he's making it, and so we'll see what happens. But I'm just kind of more on the side of I think Ja Morant just likes what basketball has given him, which is fine. But now I'm just not ever going to have Ja Morant as one of my best players because he obviously doesn't take it seriously. And come playoff time, he hasn't really shown up.
Yeah.
So, you guys can give me stats all you want. That's fine. But it hasn't resulted in playoff series wins.
Yeah. I think what makes it unfortunate is Ja Morant's 23 years old and he has literally the world at his fingertips. Arguably probably one of the most popular players in all of basketball all around the world.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely electric. Like I think the best thing that could have happened to him in terms of basketball was the series that he just put on against the Lakers in round 1 with an injured hand. Look how special he was. I think nothing epitomized his talent and how great he is more than that series. But unfortunately, at the same time, is this kid, again, 23 years old. I don't know his circumstances of where he grew up or whatnot, and nor do I know what it's like to be in his shoes. I just know, though, like the decisions that he's making is going to do one of two things. One, it's going to take away his career, which should be your number one priority, is to keep your career, because it's providing a life for you that you've probably never envisioned, and you're going to set yourself up for generations of success and being able to take care of your family. So I think you should protect your career at all costs. Two, though, I think doing what he's doing is it's not against the law depending on where he's at. And I think there's been some stories, or at least sources, that are saying that this was in, I think, Tennessee, which is an open carry state, and that's totally fine. But at the same time, though, there are people out there that if you try to show a certain side of yourself and you try to, show that you're this certain person, there are people out there that will test that. And I think you put yourself in a significant danger, and not only yourself, but those that you're around. And I don't know if Ja Morant just likes having the reputation that he does of having this, personality, but something's going to happen. He can keep the personality and all that comes with it, but he can't have the career. Or if he chooses the career, he needs to make the decision to change for the better. Yeah. And, I just hope that he's okay. I mean, this is I don't want to say it's a scary situation, but I mean,
it potentially could be.
Yeah. I mean, I think what my fear is for him is he's going to put out this energy of what he is. Someone's going to test that. And then my fear, and I pray this doesn't happen, is that we're going to get breaking news of something tragic happen. Yeah. And I don't want that to happen. In fact, I want Ja Morant to play as long as he can, have a phenomenal career, because I want him to have success in the NBA. But just like what all the other NBA legends, by the way, that have come from very similar, if not worse, backgrounds than what Ja Morant has, have been trying to tell him, is like, you got to leave that behind. Like Jalen Rose has been nothing but an advocate for Ja Morant to change, because Jalen Rose's story in itself is, I could have ended up in worse circumstances, and you have this opportunity, and I can mentor you in this. And it sounded like they were on the same page until I think Ja Morant's latest incident just really kind of slapped everyone in the face, because he led everyone to believe that no, I'm reevaluating and I'm changing things, and that's not really what happened. Yeah. So, I just really hope that he turns it around, just for his own safety and for the betterment of his career and ultimately his family and his life. So that's all I'll say about that. So, okay, Drew, number 2. We just had some comments from Davante Adams regarding how he was unhappy with Raiders front office and how they were doing things offensively this past offseason.
Davante.
So I guess this is kind of a two-parter. What do you make of the comments, and are you concerned with those comments?
It's what I've been saying on Drew Code for a long time.
Yeah.
I've been saying, you trade away Derek Carr, the whole reason he came over is probably not going to be happy. And guess what, Cody? He's not happy.
Not happy, yeah.
Wow, who would have thought of that?
Wait, Jimmy G is not the answer?
Yeah. So, listen, I understand what Davante Adams is saying, because if it were up to him, he would have wanted to have Derek Carr stay.
Yeah.
He would have wanted to keep Darren Waller. And now I've heard a lot of rumors that there's a chance that Hunter Renfrow could be gone, and it's just like I don't know. I don't. I'm with Davante Adams. Like I don't understand what we're doing offensively, other than like the draft picks, like the Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame.
Yeah, great pick.
Good pick. But you also could have kept Darren Waller. Like you didn't have to get rid of Darren Waller to get this kid.
Yeah.
Now Waller's not a great blocker like this Mayer kid is coming in, so I understand the benefit of him. But you could use both. You could get rid of Foster Moreau like they did, and still, So that's kind of my issue. Is there a lot of the things they're doing? Okay, I understand it, but you also could have kept, this guy or kept this guy, and we don't even know if Josh Jacobs is going to even be on there because it kind of seems like they're at a stalemate right now because they wanted to franchise tag him and he basically didn't accept. So, and we haven't heard anything else.
Yeah.
So we don't know if we're even going to have Josh Jacobs. So I'm with Davante Adams. I think they blew this thing up way too quick. And they were trying to advocate, we want Davante, and we want Derek Carr. And then they got rid of everyone except for Davante. And it's like, how else is he supposed to feel? Like, he literally came over because he wanted to play with Derek Carr, and then you just like took him away.
Yeah.
And he had like a career year or I don't want to say career year, but had a fantastic year with Derek Carr, minus 2 games.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, this is what I was afraid of, and this is what I was also saying is, I think he might ask for a trade, and I don't think that's out of a realm of possibilities. So, I am worried.
I think what this reminds me of is kind of like, when Josh McDaniels came, he had that press conference, and then we were sold like, no, we're here to win. You get the best receiver in the league, you pair him with his college quarterback, which, by the way, it was a success. And then you essentially added by sheer record, really, a Super Bowl winning coach from an organization that had nothing but winning. You give him arguably a top 12 quarterback in the league, the number 1 wide receiver, the number, we'll say 3 or 4 best tight end in the league, a slot guy that gets first downs, which is, you've had multiple players in the last organization that did the same thing. And they went to the playoffs the year before you. And then when you took over, they get you get them a top 10 pick. And then not only do you get rid of the quarterback that recruited the number 1 receiver that you traded for, but you didn't even draft a younger up and coming quarterback to kind of maybe show some excitement. You didn't try to go after the previous quarterback that Adams had played with before. You got Jimmy G. No disrespect to Jimmy G. You're on the team now. Welcome. But let's be honest, man, it's kind of a wash between it. And honestly, argument is are you going to stay healthy enough on the field? Yeah. And I know Davante Adams recognizes that, like, no offense to Jimmy G. No, no offense to Jimmy G, but like, I mean, Adams will make probably any quarterback look like a Pro Bowler, but is that quarterback going to get them over the hump? I don't think Jimmy G is. I really think that, in my opinion, Jimmy G really got success from Kyle Shanahan's offense, had him look really, really great. But I don't know if you can duplicate that in like a, McDaniel's offense that Jimmy G hasn't been in what, 6-7 seasons. So I just don't know. I feel for Davante Adams. I would not be surprised if next year's when he asks for the trade, because I think next season he'll have 2 years left, one of them being a player option. Maybe
even trade deadline, to be honest.
I hope not, only because like I really would like to see a full season go in with this offense, because if that could happen, then maybe, I'd hate to say it, but maybe the Raiders suck enough to where we get Caleb Williams. And then maybe Davante Adams will stick around and saying, okay, I'll help this kid out. But, also too, there was some news that, the Raiders had given some ownership stake to Tom Brady and some other player-owned
I'd be investors. Okay with Tom Brady being the quarterback.
It probably would be an upgrade, ironically. So hopefully those players can help spur some winning motivation, because sure as heck ain't coming from Josh McDaniels. But Anyways, okay, getting to number 3, we're going to kind of rapid fire this one. So, Drew, the Sixers have had a hell of a week. Within the same week, they've lost to the Miami Heat in the Western Conference semifinals. Or was it Miami Heat? No, it was the Celtics, right? Celtics, I'm so sorry. Celtics in 7 games. Joel Embiid basically said that he doesn't have any teammates. They fired Doc Rivers unceremoniously, although I'm not surprised. And then James Harden has opted out of his player option, essentially making him a...
well, because Embiid doesn't have any other teammates.
No, he doesn't. By the way, Embiid, who was announced MVP and then within the same week was eliminated from the playoffs. So just a quick reminder. What do you think the Sixers do from here?
I mean, I was telling you this. I felt like if I were the Sixers, I would actually probably try and trade Embiid because he's obviously not a good leader. Like, just completely, just blatantly saying, I don't have these teammates. Like, it's okay to be like, when you're LeBron, you can be like, hey, we need some guys to hit some shots,
Yeah.
That's not calling everyone out. That's just saying we need guys to hit a few shots. What Embiid said was, James and I can't do this ourselves. We're the only ones who are scoring. And you basically called everyone out and was like, okay, dude. So to me, that's not great. That's not a leadership. Yeah, he could have won MVP. Hey, you could get a lot back for Joel Embiid. But it's been evident for a while now, Embiid completely dies in the playoffs. He is exhausted by the time the playoffs come, which is not good. So... I mean, I like Joel Embiid. I think he's a really great player. I would take him on the Lakers in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm the Sixers, James Harden's not coming back. You fired Doc Rivers. Maybe start over. I know that's a big controversy, and people are like, oh, my God, you're going to get rid of a generational talent you're going to trade Joel Embiid. Yeah, because he doesn't like the team that he's on. So why keep him there when you're already getting rid of half of everyone else anyway? Yeah. Just get rid of him. Start over. Yes, I understand they're not going to get Victor Wembanyama, but you can make some trades to get some guys back. You can get some draft picks later on to rebuild this team because the Sixers, they have not proven that they can get past in the playoffs. Like, they can get into the playoffs. They figured it out. Hey, we know how to get into the playoffs. They don't know what to do from there. And I do think that's on the coach, but I also do think it's on Joel Embiid. There's been a lot of times after series where we're like, Joel Embiid, like, he's not aggressive. And I honestly thought in this series against the Celtics, Joel Embiid had so many times where he should have just imposed his will in the post. And what did he do? He settled for a turnaround fadeaway jumper.
Yeah.
And it was like, whereas Jokic would have bodied the guy, gone into him with his shoulder, gone up for a hook shot, which is a much easier shot than a fadeaway jumper. So there's a lot of times where Embiid is settling versus just trying to, impose his will and say, you can't stop me, which will get him confidence, which will bring doubt into the other team, and eventually it will help your team. But he doesn't do that because he's not a team player. He's really only caring about himself. He wanted the MVP, And so he pushed so hard to get the MVP that now in the playoffs, he's gassed. And you can show me all his stats. Well, Joel Embiid, he literally is doing it all himself. Okay, then. Let him go. Like, what else are you going to do if you're the Sixers? Harden doesn't want to play with him. Ben Simmons didn't want to play with him. Now, Ben Simmons isn't what he was, but it doesn't seem like anyone wants to play with him. So trade him away, and maybe you actually might get some other guys coming to the Sixers.
I know who the Sixers will probably end up signing this offseason because since James Harden isn't coming back.
Who do you think?
Your favorite guy, Kyrie Irving.
Maybe. Hey,
I mean,
maybe.
To be honest, that would
not that bad.
No, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I think that'd be a little bit more of an upgrade from James Harden because at least Kyrie Irving will show up and play. I mean, granted,
and Kyrie can score a little bit better now.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know that there's been conflicting rumors too, and I think I kind of believe the fact that James Harden is wanting to go to somewhere competitive where he's like an offensive focal point. But honestly, I thought if the best opportunity for James Harden to really show his versatility as a player would have been to make Joel Embiid a winner, and that just didn't seem to happen. So now the question could be also, where's James Harden going? And I have a feeling too, and I really hope the Sixers don't do this, because Daryl Morey, for some reason, worships at the altar of Mike D'Antoni. I don't know why, but there's a rumor that D'Antoni could be the next head coach for the Sixers, and that might keep James Harden. But I don't think that would be great for Joel Embiid, because he can't run up and down the court, 82 games out of the season. And then the only team that makes sense where both Harden and D'Antoni go to would be somewhere else, because they're clearly not going to stay in Philadelphia. So
Yeah.
I think the Sixers are a hot mess, man. I think that they need like a strong coach, like Monte. What is it? The coach that they just fired?
Monty Williams.
Monty Williams. I think he'd be a really good leader. Yeah. I mean, I really think that he could get Joel Embiid to be a lot tougher, because he tried doing it with DeAndre Ayton before Ayton kind of tuned him out. And also, too, the Suns are probably going to be an odd man out. And imagine if Chris Paul goes over to the Sixers. That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And then I think that they completely upgrade from there. But then, you have a lot more to deal with in terms of like salary cap and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I know it's crazy to say trade Joel Embiid, but I'm kind of on the side of like, if you're showing me that you can't be a leader and you're supposed to be the leader, then I'm willing to just let you go, because I want guys who want to lead. And it doesn't seem like he wants to lead. It just seems like he wants to be the guy, and now he's the guy. Mm-hmm. And if he's not getting all the shots, he's just having an issue. And I was watching James Harden, and when he wasn't making his shots, he was creating things for other players. And so it's just kind of like, what are you hating about this team?
Yeah.
Like, you're just not being a dominant force like you should be, like you can be.
Yeah. He's playing like he's 6'1", not 7'1". That's the disappointing part. So, all right, last one, Drew. I know this is what you've been waiting for all show. So on Twitter, you tagged us in. It was a ChatGPT had put out its own version of the most overrated MLB baseball players since the 2000s. It was a top 10 list. And there's some notable names on there. Like they have Alex Rodriguez, number 1, Jason Hayward, number 2. They have Tim Lincecum, number 3, which I'm sure that wasn't the only player that you took exception to. But just for those that don't know, ChatGPT is an AI software that you can type in questions. I've actually tried using it. It's cool, but it also will give you information that's kind of like old and like outdated. So just context for everybody. So Drew, I want to know, like, what's your biggest hang up with this list? Just run it through me. Like, what's the deal with this, and where's your biggest issue with it?
So I didn't have a problem with 4 of the names. 4.
Mm-hmm.
And
4 out of 10?
I think I'm being generous.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with them saying Jason Hayward, because Jason Hayward, his rookie season, they were talking about that there was a possibility that he was going to win NL Rookie of the Year over Buster Posey during that year. Mm-hmm. And Buster Posey ended up winning it, which I think in hindsight was the right thing, because Buster Posey had a great career. Now, Jason Hayward has not had a terrible career, but he's been really lackluster when it comes to his offense. Now, his defense has been good. He's maintained that, but he's kind of having a little bit of resurgence here with the Dodgers. But overall, we thought Jason Hayward was going to be a star in the making, and he ended up not being. So I'll give you that one. Tim Lincecum, towards the end of his career, people were waiting for him to kind of do what he would do. I wouldn't put him on this list, and I'll give you that reason in a second. David Eckstein, I actually agree with this, because David Eckstein was a beast coming into postseason when he played. But during the regular season, Eckstein was just another player for the Cardinals. So I agree with that. Josh Hamilton, everyone kept waiting for him to be – they were treating him like he was going to be Aaron Judge without actually being Aaron Judge. And then he had all these issues off the field, and then he just was never really that dominant of a hitter as they thought he would. He had some bright moments, but he never really came out to what he was. And then the other one was Betancourt, Yuniesky Betancourt for the Mariners at number 10. Yeah, I agree with that. He was kind of this hyped up player, and he kind of never ended up being that. So I agree with those. Now, what I disagree with is everyone else. So I'll start with Alex Rodriguez. Alex Rodriguez is borderline a Hall of Famer. Whether you want to admit it or not, whether he was liked by writers or not, I'm not really caring about that. What I'm saying is his numbers and the way he played and how dominant he was for as many years. Yes, he did the PEDs. He did the time. He admitted to it. He never denied. I mean, he did deny it. Then he got caught, and there he was like, okay, I did it. Whatever.
But he didn't do the full Roger Clemens deal.
Yeah, he's still not out here going, I never did. I can't believe. Yeah. So A-Rod admitted it, and he played, and listen, he was on a hated Yankees team. That's why everyone hated A-Rod. A-Rod did some shady things every now and then. He wasn't the best teammate all the time. But at the same time, like, A-Rod was a great player.
Yeah.
And, like, towards the end of his career, yeah, he was kind of slowing down, but he was still one of those guys that you could never just throw a pitch, down the middle and hope that it's going to get past him because he's going to hit it. And he was actually really solid. We don't give him enough credit from going from shortstop his whole career to then moving to third base because he wanted to respect Derek Jeter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, guys. Like, A-Rod, he hit 696 home runs.
It's a lot.
Career. Yeah, it's a lot. He did well, okay? He's a borderline Hall of Famer. He's not overrated. Tim Lincecum. Now, I understand why people would say that, but Tim Lincecum in his prime was the most dominant. Was like basically Jacob deGrom before deGrom. Tim Lincecum won 2 Cy Young awards in a row on a not great Giants team. Mm-hmm. He was like the best player for the Giants for a while because he was their only ace that they had. This kid was 5'10". He was scrawny, like barely weighed 180 pounds. And just would absolutely throw heat. He was consistently 97, 98. Just fastball. He had a wicked curveball that he got you with. He had a changeup that looked exactly like his fastball and dipped at the end. He just had some great pitches. He was a great pitcher. But as we see with these guys who throw hard for a long time, they start declining. They start losing that velocity. So, he was getting hit a lot more. But he still won a World Series with the Giants. Mm-hmm. And he actually had a really good outing in the postseason. So it's kind of hard for me to say he was overrated. He wasn't what he was towards the end, of course. But I don't think he was overrated. He won 2 Cy Young Awards for a reason. Still
the best windup in baseball.
Oh, my God, I love that. I used to mimic it all the time, but it never worked for me. Mark Pryor, I disagree with a lot because Mark Pryor was a really good pitcher, but he kept getting injuries. And I think it's unfair to say he was overrated because he kept getting hurt. He just was an injured guy. Mm-hmm. But he was worth whatever he was going to get paid with. I remember watching him with the Cubs, and he was a dominant pitcher when he pitched, but he just kept getting derailed by injuries. I don't think that's overrated. I think that's just unlucky. Mm-hmm. Andrew Jones is freaking wild to me. Andrew Jones was he was a good player.
He was the one with the Braves and with Chipper Jones, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. I remember
he was a dominant duo. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, Andrew Jones being on this is wild to me. Okay, I understand. Again, towards the end of his career, he wasn't what he was, but this is what happens. You come into the league, you kind of have some success. You hit a wall here and there, but the best players figure it out. Andrew Jones figured it out. He played for a long time. Then as he got older, this is what happens to every baseball player. You start declining. You're not hitting as much or you're not throwing as hard. So you kind of have to figure out that. And I don't think he was bad. I think he was really good his whole career. Towards the end, he was starting to get to the point where, you couldn't even start him anymore. But that, to me, is not overrated. That's just gradually becoming an older baseball player. So Andrew Jones being on this list is wild. And I feel the very same way. Nomar Garciaparra is wild to me. Nomar Garciaparra for the Red Sox was so good. He wasn't the best shortstop, but he was just Mr. Consistent for them at that position. He was the only guy at that point in time that could rival Derek Jeter when it came to star shortstops, in my opinion. because it was always Derek Jeter, but no more Garcia Parra was this guy who, consistently would hit really well. He wasn't a big power guy, but he knew how to get those RBIs. He knew how to get those base hits. He knew how to get on base however he needed to, and he was a solid defender. And even with the Dodgers, towards the end, was he what he was? No, but he still was a really good player. And I think people forget that. No more Garcia Parra being on this list is wild. And then finally, Eric Gagne being on this list is also a very wild statement. Eric Gagne didn't have a long career, so I'll give you that. But Eric Gagne was the most dominant closer in the game when he was in a Dodger uniform.
Yeah.
Yes, towards the end, again, he was starting to get hit, but closers, that's what happens. You have a good little bit of a stretch, and then you kind of guys start figuring you out. We saw that with Kenley Jansen. So are we going to see Kenley Jansen on this? I hope not, because is he what he once was? No, but he's still a great closer. Eric Gagne was such a good closer. He was when I grew up, it was Eric Gagne, Trevor Hoffman, Mariano Rivera. I know I'm missing like 4 or 5 guys that I remember, but like those are the names that came to my head right away. And Eric Gagne was in that discussion. And at the at-bat that I always see on my Twitter feed, like every day, is the at-bat that he had against Barry Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows how good Eric Gagne was, but it also shows how Barry Bonds was. And it was and like when you watch it, and if you think about other people who didn't grow up watching that, they're like, what's the big deal? He's just, I know this guy was like supposed to be this best hitter, but why was it a big deal about Eric Gagne? Eric Gagne was, at that point, was the best closer in the game. Mm-hmm. At that point, he was the best closer. And I know Padre fans are going to be like, what about Trevor Hoffman? Trevor Hoffman was the most consistent closer, besides Mariano Rivera. But Mariano Rivera had the famous cutter, played forever, and it was an anomaly that he lasted that long. Same with Trevor Hoffman. But Eric Gagne became one of the most dominant closers in the game, and it was such a crazy at bat because you could see how Gagne was blowing past early in the at bat. He was blowing things past Barry Bonds. Bonds adjusted and was able to foul off a couple of pitches until he got the one that he wanted. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I love watching that every time because it's just, you can see how dominant Gagne was, and then you see how great Barry Bonds was. So Eric Gagne being on this list to me is just, it's mind-blowing, man.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. So I hated this list. I was like, this is such a dumb list. I was so mad.
Didn't Gagne have that, like, what was it, 65 in a row, like, save record or whatever in a season?
Yeah.
Wasn't it something like that? I was like super long. I think it was like in the early 2000s.
I think it was like 50 something, but I mean,
it was remember. I don't think that record has been touched yet, but he obliterated it and then some. I think it was like 2002 or 2003. It just went on forever, it seemed like.
Yeah, and he was so good.
Yeah,
so good. And again, they came out and found out that he was doing PEDs too. So I think maybe that's part of why he's on this, because a lot of those guys like A-Rod, I know Eric Gagne was, Hamilton was, I just closed it out, so I can't think of everyone. But like, some of those guys were on PEDs, so I think maybe it's just against that. But I don't know, man. Gagne was so dominant at that time. PEDs or not, I just think he was a great closer in his time. So, and he wasn't like he was doing PEDs for like 5-6 years straight. He was caught like I think towards like one of the last years he was in, and so I don't know. I think Eric Gagne was a dominant pitcher in my opinion.
Leave it to baseball to get rid of all the fun. They should allow PEDs.
Yeah,
they should allow it. Go wild, guys.
I'm not even that upset about it. I know it's like keep the game pure, but like
nah.
We talk about like how we want to score more runs, we want to see more home runs, we want to see these guys, like these dominant pitchers, like,
Mhm.
well, there's a way to do that.
I just want to see an overly jacked pitcher beyond belief. Like he's got like his
John
lats out to
Rocker.
here.
John Rocker. If you don't remember John Rocker, Cody, which I'm not sure you do, he was a Braves pitcher. He was
I
like a
remember
relief
him.
pitcher.
Yeah.
This dude was jacked, and this guy was on so much roids. He had such roid rage. I love watching him pitch because you knew he was just going to be pissed off at something.
Yeah.
And he was fun. So yeah, John Rocker was that guy.
That's what
if
I
you
want.
don't know who I'm talking about, go look him up. It's just it's the best. This dude is just like
I want a dude that looks like Bo Jackson in the batter's box, and I want another guy that looks like The Rock, some bodybuilder that's throwing him like 200-mile-an-hour heat. I want to see that.
Yeah.
Allow PEDs in the game. Why not?
Allow it. Just do it. Come on. Don't be pansies.
Okay.
All right. That's it. We've exhausted everything, Cody. So any final thoughts from you?
Man, it was so fun to do this. I hope we get to do 2 weeks in a row.
I know. I don't know. I was lucky to do it today.
I know you called me at like 5:30 and said, "Hey, man, I'm able to do it if you are just after the game." And I was like, "Yeah, totally, man." And then my wife, of course, set me up earlier today. So
that was great. That was good teamwork by me and her.
I know. I fell for it too. So like an idiot.
I know. I bet I could just hear your face. It wasn't like you said anything, but I could just see your face in my head of how when she was like, "What are you talking about?" And you were like, "I make sure you did that." You did, didn't you?
I stared at her like, "Are you kidding me?"
You tilted your head and you're like, and you kind of had that half smile, like, "Okay, what are you talking about?"
The two people I love the most are setting me up and messing with me here. It's not fair. I do nothing but take care of everybody.
You're gonna forget it next week.
Yeah, I probably will.
Anyway, so I just want to first say I know you probably heard the commercials during the episode, but big shout out to FNX Fit, big shout out to Fanatics and SeatGeek, who are all sponsors of the show. So please use our links that we have for for all three of those. And use our promo codes, or like I said, use the links where you will help support our podcast. Also, give us a rating on wherever you get your podcast, whether it be Apple, iHeart, Spotify, whatever it is. Give us a rating on that. Let us know what you enjoyed, and that way we can continue to do that. And if it's a 1-star, please let us know what you didn't like, so we can actually work on that, and also write hate mail to you. So no, but please subscribe also on the podcast. All that will help, and like the episodes. Go check out our YouTube page, all of our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Cody has been doing a good job since we've been kind of, I guess this is a soft comeback. But we've had a few TikTok videos up on lately, so go check them out. You know, Cody does a good job posting on the Facebook and Instagram as well, and so yeah, just go check us out. Like I said, all those links to our partners that we have are on all the social media sites and on YouTube as well. So you can go there, or you can go to drewcodesportstalk.com, which I think is still up.
It is.
Okay. So it goes to show you how often I go on there. Anyway, Cody's going to have a conversation with me. But anyway,
you should check it out, Drew. There's some interesting stuff on there.
I have checked it out. I just haven't checked it out in a while. So go check all those out, and all the links are on there as well, and you can get all the episodes through there as well. So I think I've covered everything, Cody. I'm going to send it off to you. If I forgot anything, you can do it.
Clean up your mess. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So also a quick reminder, the NFL schedules come out, so we will be doing our NFL record predictions in the next few weeks. Stay tuned for that. We'll send you guys out all the notifications regarding it. And then I did pose this last week, Drew, but I think we are going to do it the top 10 positions in the NFL.
If we do it early enough, I think we can. So.
Well, I mean, there's only like 12 weeks until football, so we better get started. So,
pish posh.
All right. I think that's pretty much it, guys. Just like what Drew said, visit our website, drewcosportstalk.com, subscribe to the pod and to the YouTube channel. We'll catch you guys next week, I hope. But if not, check us out on TikTok. Like Drew said, I do post pretty regularly on there, and I do also interact as well. So we will see you guys next week, everyone. Be kind to one another, and we'll see you.